Hello everyone, it's a beautiful day here at the BYU Family History Library, and today we'd like to talk a little bit about the history of photography and how to identify old photographs. The first thing I'd like to go over is the types of photographs and when they were popular. Daguerreotypes were invented in 1838. And they were popular between 1840 and 1864. Daguerreotypes were small images, and the main characteristic of a daguerreotype is it has a mirror-like characteristic, and so it makes it easy to identify. Daguerreotypes were expensive. They cost around $5. That was about a man's weekly wage. So it was out of reach for most regular people. That $5 in today's money would be about $130 today. Named for the American photographer James Ambrose Cutting, the technical name for an Ambrotype photograph is collodion positive. The photographic emulsion was directly deposited onto glass. They were then placed in a protective case with a dark black piece of fabric or paper behind them. You almost never find an ambrotype without the protective case. They are just too fragile to survive without them. Ambrotypes were popular between 1855 and 1865, and they were a lot more affordable. As you can see, this young lady had her Ambrotype taken at James and Company's 25-cent Daguerreotype and Ambrotype rooms. In today's dollars, that 25 cents is around $7 to $10, so it was much more affordable. Tintypes were photos made on thin sheets of metal. They were inexpensive and very popular at county fairs and other public events. People could sit for a portrait and wait for a few minutes and take it home. Carte de vista photography revolutionized the way that we think about photography. Popular between 1860 and 1890, this was the first time photographs were made with reusable negatives. The types of photographs we've talked about before were one of a kind. There was no way to make a second one just like it. Carte de vista photographs were printed on thin pieces of paper and then glued to heavy cardstock that was usually very minimally decorated or not decorated at all. Cabinet cards came around about the same time as the carte de vista, and they're very similar. They are larger than the carte de vista photos. They were popular between 1870 and 1900, and as you can see, they were highly decorative and almost walking advertisements for the photographer. So now we kind of know a little bit about what types of photographs are out there. Let's talk about some ways that we may be able to identify some photos. One way to possibly identify a photograph is by using information that you can gather about the photographer. The bottom of this photograph, there is an inscription that says Kemp and Smith, 256 Main Street, Paterson, New Jersey. And on this photograph, the inscription says Kemp and Smith, 197 Market Street, Paterson, New Jersey. If we go to Ancestry.com and sign in, and we hover over the search bar, it brings a drop-down menu that we can go directly to the card catalog. Once in the card catalog, you can see the U.S. city directories 1822 to 1995. And if for some reason it's not on the list automatically, you can always search for city directories. My first item of business is to find out if there are even city directories from that area at the time that I want to look at them. And you can see that we have on the corner, there's New Jersey, Paterson, and 1895. Paterson, New Jersey actually has quite a few, and so that's why I chose these two photographs. I add in Kemp as a last name. I put the place as Paterson and mark it to exactly this place. And in this case, I added in the keyword Kemp and Smith. This doesn't always work, and sometimes you need to add other keywords like photographer or, something else like that. So here's our list of several Kemp Smith or Smith Kemp listings in Paterson, New Jersey. And I want to draw your attention down to the bottom left-hand corner to browse individual records. As you can see, we have 1892, 1891, 1894, and I actually, by going in and searching individual directories that are not listed here, I was actually able to find more information. From my research, I was able to determine that John Kemp was a photographer well established by 1889 in Paterson. In 1891, it suddenly becomes Kemp and Smith photographers, still at the same 256 address, and that remains the same through 1892 and 1893. However, in 1894, the company has now moved to their studio to 197 Market Street. They're there at the same location in 1895, but in 1896, Kemp and Smith no longer exists, and we're back to John Kemp at 197 Market Street. By using this technique, we were able to date both of these photographs, the first one to 1891 to 1894, and the second one we were actually able to confirm a date that was written in the top corner as 1894 to 1895. One of the ways you can really increase your ability to recognize fashion clues and things is to build your own reference guide on Pinterest. Here's just a sampling of the different things that I've pinned to my Pinterest board, 19th century fashion, that may help me identify photographs. Many times we don't have access to the original photograph, so we have no idea if this is a daguerreotype or a tintype or what type of material that it's on. And so let's look at some of the clues. The first one is you can see the ring where a protective case had been on it at one point. The second are the long ringlets. And the third is how her waist, the bodice on her dress has been gathered in to make a very tight waist, and yet her sleeves aren't really puffy. So one of the things I have pinned on my Pinterest board is some hairstyles, and 1894 is pretty close. This is a young girl, and so she may not have been old enough to put her hair up yet. We must remember that there were no off-the-rack clothing at that time, especially for women, and the dresses that were made at the time are as individual as the seamstresses who made them. But women, just like today, keep it very much in style and in fashion, and so you can really see a very similar fashion sense as time changes. These two dresses are part of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, and you can see that they are both dated to the early, between 1843 and 1845. So my guess would be, from the clues that I've seen, that this is a daguerreotype from the mid-1840s. Look for similarities. This is a photograph that is in my own personal collection. It is printed on a thin piece of paper, glued to a hard cardstock, and so it is a carta vista because there's no other decoration or advertisement on it. And on the back it says Toll's family. And I have many Toll's family, and that I researched, and so I was really lucky that Lydia was identified. So then I could place the family. My question was, who was the older man in the photograph? My aunt identified that man as Lydia's oldest brother. But after looking at it, that just doesn't seem right. He seems to be a much older gentleman. At the time that I found this family group shot, the only known photograph that I knew of Lydia's father, of John White Tolles, was the photograph of him as a young man that you can see on the right. And after really looking at it, I really believe that this is the right individual. Since then, other family members from other branches of the family have posted other photographs of John White Tolles on Family Search, and it is definitely him. Now, our very last one is Common Sense, and this is more of a unidentifying photographs section. The names and details of these people have been changed to protect the innocent, but let's pretend that this is you found this wonderful photograph on Family Search, and it was connected with a man named John Campbell, who was born in 1796 and who died in 1863. And that from the information on Family Search, you knew that he was a drummer boy for the War of 1812. Stop and think about how old this man would be when these type of photographs were taken. This is a Union drummer boy from the Civil War, so it couldn't possibly be John Campbell that was born in 1796. It may be a grandson or someone that has the same name that has just been attached here. So just pay attention to things like that. One more pretend case. Let's pretend that this is Annie Smith Van Buren and that she was born in 1820 and she died crossing the plains in 1847. And this photograph is attached to her personal page in Family Search. Does this look like a 27-year-old woman? Does this woman have a big belled skirt that she would have had in 1847? No. This may be Annie Smith Van Buren's husband's second wife, but it definitely isn't Annie Smith Van Buren. Thanks for joining us today to learn a little bit about the history of photography and how to identify old photographs. Have a wonderful day, everyone.